name's Chris Warden, and I'll be your artist today. Today, I'll be drawing this for you. But before I actually draw that for you, I just wanted to let you know about something new. I just started myself a Patreon campaign, and if you don't know what Patreon is, it's basically like a Kickstarter that helps support the artist that is actually making the campaign, kind of like Kickstarter, but instead of it being a one-time thing, it's actually a monthly thing. If you want to check out my Patreon campaign, it's actually at patreon.com/Chris Warden, and I've got some cool rewards up, from getting copies of my PDF comic books to getting commissions made, and all sorts of other things in between, from Google Hangouts, and where you get to talk to me about anything you want, or stuff like getting original copies of the drawings that I do during this video. So like this one is going to be up probably. Anyway, check it out, see if it's something that you're interested in, and if it is, then please support me. If not, please do me a favor and just share it with the world. Let everyone know about it. The more help I can get, the better. Alright, so before we actually get started with the actual inking part of the video, I just wanted to talk to you guys about the process that goes into the designing of the piece before actually drawing, before actually inking it. I have to do a lot of laying out work, and if you look carefully at this, you'll see a lot of erasing marks. So this doesn't, come out, fully formed immediately. It's one of those things where you get a concept and you start playing with it. For instance, in this case, I actually started with the pier here. So there's these 4 pillars, or well, actually three pillars here, and this shape over here, which I started with. I was trying to come up with something that was a little bit more of an upshot, kind of dynamic, and not anything that was very much like a straight line going this way with the page, or straight up and down with the page. Everything is slightly off angle, or kind of giving a kind of a triangular kind of a feel to the page. And when I started working with the elements of the actual characters on here, I wanted to make sure that everything was either on an angle or was some sort of a curve. The reason for this is because when you're designing something very up and down, it can tend to be boring. But if you add curves and you add angles to everything, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more interesting to look at. So for instance, you can see Alicia over here is on a very serious angle. Over here, Chewster's eyes are on an angle. His up and down kind of portion of his head is on an angle. The snake is even kind of on an angle, like it's not necessarily flat with the horizon line or anything like that. It's actually on a little bit of an angle here. Another thing that I tried to do when I'm designing my my drawings is I try to think about where the eye is kind of moving around the page. So if you look over here, you can kind of see this giant sea snake is kind of curving along here, and it's lining up, so it's looking at Alicia. And that's drawing your eye over here, where you can see her vision is actually going straight through this telescope, or periscope, or whatever it is. And that line is sort of leading your eyes back here with her hair and everything like that, and her arm, all the way back over to Chewster, and his line of sight is going down, and even the curve of his fins on his back is leading your eye downward towards the hump of the Sea Serpent snake thing, which is actually also going with the motion of the water and leading your eyes back over to the snake. So it's kind of a big circular motion over here. These elements all sort of help tie the image together as well. And while I'm designing a piece like this, I'm trying to think of ways to make it so that your eyes are led around the drawing in an interesting way, and not getting stuck anywhere, or not pointing your eyes in any direction that I don't necessarily want you to be looking. Anyway, that gives you sort of an insight as to my thought process going into here. You can see everything starts out kind of rough to begin with, and I'm going very, very light with the pencil, and I'm slowly getting darker and darker, trying to make sure I'm figuring out really where I'm going to be putting my lines. And I also tend to overdraw my initial drawings a bit much before I get into the inking, because I'm not quite so, I don't know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist with my inks, so I want to make sure that I know exactly what I'm going to be putting down ink-wise before I get to that stage. Also, another thing that people have been asking me about is what I do with the red pencil if I erase it after I ink it, and the answer to that is actually I don't erase it much. I tend to scan it directly into Photoshop and then take the reds away using Photoshop, so I'm just left with the black lines afterwards. And this sort of takes out a step, and also it preserves my inks, because if I start erasing over the inks, what ends up happening is I pull up a lot of the inks and they end up looking faded and they don't look as pretty. And when I sell an original piece of artwork, for some reason I always like it better when you can still see the sketch lines underneath the inks. I like that when I see it from somebody else's work, just because I'm just that way. I'm one of those people who likes to see what the artist was thinking and playing with, and see where the finished lines actually deviate from the original sketch. Anyway, I hope you liked today's drawing, and I hope you like the inking session.